All right, how you doing, folks? Ordinary Income back today. A little video before we wrap up the week, head into the weekend. Something that has been on my Twitter feed that I've been seeing, that I've been starting to research, and that is the money we are sending overseas, particularly to Ukraine. And the reason being just the size of the money and where it's going to. Now, the number one thing is how much are we sending? And we saw the U.S., the House passed the bill or legislation of some sorts that is going to be sending $40 billion over there. While their economy is projected to contract 30%, it's another topic, but the overall idea is the $40 billion being sent on top of the millions that have already been sent. So why the hell do I even care about this in the first place? The reason being is because there's always been a track record of U.S. foreign aid being spent. And I don't want to say that, oh, we're spending this money when we could be spending on something else, because that argument stands forever, in my opinion at least, that there's always going to be a cost-benefit analysis, and that you can always say that if we didn't spend, instead of spending a certain dollar amount here, it could be then, revisited or redirected to another place. And most of the time it's really dependent on usually the political aisle that you're leaning on, as well as your own priorities. That if you are a person who's maybe in a lower income level, you could say, why are we sending money outside when we should be helping those who are in need in America and all that? But the same rate, you could be saying, why would we be sending money outside if we could be sending it to Planned Parenthood in America, or something to help our own veterans coming back? There's just, the argument spans too much for me personally, but the overall dollar amount here is what strikes me. And when I started looking into it more, I was trying to figure out, why are we sending so much? And this article from Yahoo Sports, of all places, which is interesting, was interesting because it said that the Ukrainian finance minister says that so far they spent $8.3 billion. And when I looked into what they were spending it on, they said it's gone into things going from weaponry purchases, repair to emergency support funds who've been disabled from the invasion, and originally those funds were planned for domestic development and all that. So basically it's gone for military-based reasons. And the problem that struck me up with this is that I remember when the invasion first started, is that a lot of European countries, I know Poland in particular, and a lot of NATO countries have been saying that they are going to be providing military weapons to Ukraine. America was one of those. And I'm assuming that with the onslaught of support, one of two things is now either true, is that they either didn't receive and they need to pay for it, or they did receive it and I guess they blew through it of sorts. But it seems like if you're having all these powerful countries sending you weapons, that you're getting a decent amount, not just in dollar amount, but amount in productivity as well. So that part was, and that's when I started looking into a little bit more of the arms. But it's tough to find any ideas of what money has been spent where, let alone in this bill in particular, outlining who's receiving more directly, who's going to be receiving, and where we're spending it from, how we're allocating this, and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a little tough. If anybody watching has any ideas of how to track this a little bit better, by all means. But it's really tough to get the accounting on anything from the government, because it's usually kept away from the public eye for whatever reasons. You can speculate on that yourself. But the idea being is that now all of a sudden, this country has become one of the top recipients of U.S. military aid after Israel and Egypt. And that brings into a little bit of controversy, because we know that Israel and Egypt have a lot of polarizing comments behind them when it comes to military aid. So foreign aid itself, whether it be military or not, foreign aid, how does that look? Usually in the United States, we've spent around a little bit over $40 billion per year in foreign aid. Now we're going to be slapping on another 40 just to one country. So if we're keeping up with this trend, if we're saying it looks like it's going to average around 47 billion, we're going to be doing 87 at least. And when I take a look at the countries that are receiving the most foreign aid, it's a lot of Middle Eastern countries, speculating now as much as you want. But these have been the top ones, I think, for just 2020 though. So apologies, this is the best that Wikipedia does for me. But obviously the first one's going to be striking some nerves based on what's happened the past 12 months over there in Afghanistan. But overall idea being this, I just want to bring this video up because of something that was boggling my mind, is that this is a lot of money being sent. And, outside of the fact that, there's ways we could spend it inside, the accounting behind this is going to be tough. Let's even see if we can find a breakdown of money sent over there. just to see like any form of accounting of sorts. I mean, I'm going to be surprised if I can find any accounting on this. All right, here's something from March. And it's behind the paywall though in the New York Times. Brutal. Compared to stimulus checks and Newsweek. All right, here we go. So hold on a minute. So we already sent $13.6 billion as well, and this was in March. So now our total is about $53.6 billion. And see if I could find 13.6. That's how much it was approved. 3.6 for weapons transfer and sales. Another $3 billion to support U.S. troops over there, which is interesting because the number one thing is that there was not supposed to be any U.S. troops entering. Otherwise, it was going to be even more problematic. What else are we doing? Another 200 million already went. I mean, there's a lot of money. And the reason I say this is because I have friends over there and they've been saying that there's, like, we're seeing how much money is going over there. My friends have been saying none of it's reaching the people in the first place. And I don't want to become a little bit more skeptical or conspiratorial, but like we all know that there's a lot of ties to the current administration behind what is happening in Ukraine, in particular the family related to it, and how much money has been moved around between the two parties. So if that's the case, I think this is just really becoming another form of, I think no way about it that there's going to be a portion of this, at least somewhat of this $40 billion is going to be used for laundering of sorts. It's going to be used to stuff pockets. And you don't have to believe me in the first place. I mean, anytime we go to war, there's a lot of people who benefit from it. That's not us. So let's see who does benefit. Usually it's, all right, so we can see, usually it's military companies and all that. And unfortunately, the companies who make the arms are heavily tied to political parties and friends in Congress as well. So my point being is that there's a lot of money being sent. I don't think the money is being sent properly, let alone do I think that this needs to be the dollar amount that we're sending. There's other arguments in that with inflation so high, we really are printing so much to be sent somewhere else rather than figure out our own issues. That argument's there to be made as well. Of course, the biggest argument is why are we even involving ourselves in the first place, which will take you down a crazy, I mean, you'll get different answers to that because you can kind of trace back to how the United States has been involved, let alone. But overall, this dollar amount, I think there's just something interesting about this. That's the reason why I want to make the video in the first place. It's just to say that I don't believe that all of it is being used properly. I don't believe we even need to be sending this much amount. I mean, how this number came about to be in the first place is what confuses me. Why 40 billion? Why not 10? Why not 100? You know, where does this number come in? Obviously, the lack of being able to see what the breakdown is going to be, not just like from an article, but line item by line item, is what is definitely going to like it's the thing that really boggles my mind. So let's see if we can find a line item breakdown of money sent over there. Again, the visualization, here's where it's going. This is from The Hill though, so we got to be a little careful. Military security is receiving what? The administration already spent $4 billion. There's vehicles, equipment and arms, economy. Anytime you see like something generic like economy is what throws red flags for me. Humanitarian aid is another thing that throws red flags for me. Other is not a good description. It could be the source, but I think 30 million to support the electrical grid, 100 million to the Food for Peace program. Programs are red flags. Whenever you see anything that goes to a program, that's usually some sort of chain, red tape going on around. It just means that there's a tougher way for the money to go from the people sending it to the people who need it. There's definitely middlemen involved. Department of Commerce, Department of Justice, I mean, there's all these departments that are getting it too. Let's see if we can look more into humanitarian aid. But we can do this all day. Anyways, for all of you following, just wanted to make a video about that. See if anybody has any ideas, if you have any links to something, if you know of any ways to track it a little bit better, and without kind of getting into biased sources or sources that maybe lean one side or lean the other side. So that's my video, a little bit more of a call out. What does it mean for you though? Spending all this money is not great. The first thing I want to point out is that, what was the other article I showed? This is how much we spent between 2013 and 2018. When we spent this amount of money, we spent it under financial situations and we had no interest rates. We had the Federal Reserve pumping money into markets as well, particularly the bond market. So whenever the US wanted to, send out money, they pretty much had to finance it. So they would issue out bonds, and the Federal Reserve would be the ones purchasing those bonds. Now the issue is that with this $40 billion, they may have approved it, but guess what? Like, someone has to buy this $40 billion in bonds, because that's how I'm guessing they're going to be financing it. So there's going to be interest on this that usually wasn't the case before, and you have to find a buyer, seeing that the Federal Reserve is not one. So it really puts a lot of pressure. It means that either we're going to have to print more money to do it, or there's going to be some sort of buyer who takes it, or I guess a accumulation of buyers that purchase it. But you know, with the financial conditions, I don't know if that's exactly a smart move. So it leaves a lot of questions on the financial side for you, for the consumer. It's just more money being spent from us, whether we like it or not. So a little bit of a darker video, but it is what it is. I hope you all gained something from this. If you have any answers, because really all I did was pose questions, hopefully seeing if anyone has any answers, let me know. I'll leave this video up. I'll leave my Twitter. You can contact me or interact with me however you'd like. Hope you all have a great weekend aside from this depressing stuff. Hope you all enjoy, and I'll be back next week to talk about more news, more macro events going on.